Hello, my lovelies. Today we are going to talk about something you may or may not have heard. It's a phrase. It's a bit of an adult word, so earmuffs if there's kids around. The shitty first draft, okay? And we can call this the SFD, but whatever you call it, it's a real thing, and I want to talk about it. So here's the deal. No matter how good of a writer you are, you're never, ever going to write a book in one draft. You might be able to write a blog post in one draft if you're a strong writer, but a book length work is just not going to come together in one draft. And not even writers who have been at it for years and years and decades, like James Patterson, for example, and I use him because I took one of his master classes and I just think he's the funniest guy ever. But he talks about how even his books come out in 3, 4, 5, many drafts before landing on a final. So another example, Anne Lamott in Bird by Bird, she talks about how shitty first drafts are the gateway to better second drafts and even better third drafts. So you just can't get to those better third drafts without your first crappy draft. So that is the point. And you may be asking yourself, like, Danielle, why are we talking about this today? Because I always want to make sure that you have the skills and the tools to write your book, but I also know that writing a book requires the right mindset. So this is a mindset shift that I want you to make and something I want you to keep in your mind when you're writing, especially your first draft. You're not done with the draft, you're still heavy lifting here. So this is so important at this phase because when you allow yourself the freedom to write that crappy first draft, you can actually focus on what's most important, and that's just getting your story out. That in and of itself is the hard work that is required first and foremost. Then you can go back and clean that up. That is the easy part, if you ask me. So now I know we've talked about this a little bit, but again, I want to do this mindset shift, if you will, so that you truly understand why this is so important to keep in mind when you're writing a book-length piece of writing, when you're writing your memoir. So let's first admit, we all are going to admit this together, that very few of us, if anyone, truly know all of the words that are going to be written in our book. You may not know all of the words that belong in that particular section or chapter. You might not even know how to piece together a paragraph in one particular scene because in your mind it's so vivid, but you've never really put it to words. So we're not going to be able to just magically produce this book and the words that go in it with one shot. Now, if you've been working really long and hard on your outline, I'm sure you're very prepared to get all of the scenes written and you're not going to have a lot of sticky points and you have a clear idea of what belongs in what scene and how you want to describe it. But again, those words, they've never been formed or decided upon in this written context. Even if you're relying on maybe some journal entries or something, those words may be used, but they're not going to be all of the words that you need to describe your book. So let's just admit that we don't have all the words yet. Have you ever heard of this saying that writing is an act of discovery, an act of self-discovery? It's so true because when writing, discover the depth of our stories and all of a sudden can come to these realizations that we just didn't have before. I've had so many clients tell me that they had these aha moments while they were getting pushed by me to go a little deeper with things. You know, the surface level is easy to see, but when you go deeper underneath, you start piecing things together and getting these revelations handed to you by your awareness in focusing on that moment. So these are the things that maybe you've wrestled with putting to terms for years and never really been able to pinpoint how you felt about these things or how you perceived them or how they play a part in your story. But writing will conjure all of this up. Writing is very therapeutic. and will evoke these emotions and these healing and dealing processes that are required in order to get your story out. So there's just no way for you to know exactly how your story will sound until it's out. So once you know what your book is about and you have that solid outline in place, your main goal is to sit down and write your first crappy draft. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to look like a real book. There's no right or wrong format or look for this crappy first draft where it's just what is driving the process. We just have to get it out. But here are a couple ideas to help you kind of shift into this I'm okay if this is really crappy mindset versus the kind of perfectionist that some of us battle once in a while. That side of the coin is I know I'm a good writer, or I know I have a good story, and I just need to get all of the right words in all of the right places before I can move on. I want you to live in the, hey, this is my crappy first draft and I don't care about what it looks like or how it sounds yet. No one's ever going to see this thing but me, maybe an editor, but probably not. You'd probably go through some self-editing before you even hand it over to an editor. So this is literally something that doesn't even exist in the world. So to help you along with this mindset, there's a couple things that I want you to think about and maybe try on for size. First, just give yourself that permission. You're writing a shitty draft. It's okay. You can either even title the name of your document shitty first draft or discovery draft or whatever, throw it on the top of your page, put it in your header, whatever you want to just continually remind yourself, this is not going anywhere except your word processor and your own two eyes. That is it. You can even give yourself a little writing character and kind of make up this little persona for yourself. Like you're the rebel. You're the person who just doesn't care. Who cares about rules? Who cares about how anyone else is going to think about it? Give your little rebel character a name and then blame it on her. She's the one making me do this. Even get a little avatar or a little image and stick it up on the heading of your document and tell her to get started. Okay, it's time to write. I'm just going to sit back and you're doing the hard work. So have fun with this. This is just a thing that helps you lean into your writing and let go of anything that will hold you back. Another tip is to just jumping into the deep end. Start typing nonsense words. It doesn't even have to sound like it belongs in your book. I mean, Danielle is telling me I have to write every day and I don't know why and I don't I don't get what the big deal is. Just start typing and eventually lead yourself around the bend to maybe part of your story. Maybe it's not this part you need to work on that day. It's a different part. That's totally fine. But just let go of all the constraints that require you to type words that belong in your book. Here's another thing. This one actually goes pretty hand in hand with my little type with your eyes closed tip that I talked about a few videos ago. But just start typing as fast as you possibly can. And what you're trying to do is outpace your inner critic. You're like racing your inner critic. They can't even keep up with what you're typing because they're back at the first 3 words and you're on word 15. You're just typing and typing and typing about that particular scene or topic or person or whatever it is. And you're not even thinking about the words that just left your fingers. Set a timer, 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever feels sustainable for you. This might be a short little stint, and just type. Maybe it's a situation where you're like, I don't even know how to describe this. Just jump in and whatever the first word that pops in your head, start typing, then throw another word after that. So, and that I guess is kind of my last point. Just freestyle, almost like you would in your journal, which I've talked about before. So I'm not going to focus as heavily on that one in this video. But again, allow yourself the freedom to write and not care about what it looks like. The rules are important. The structure and format, they're all important. And we will eventually make sure that those things are solid. But when you're in this drafting phase, you need to have room to breathe. You need to have that space in order to feel into your story how you need to feel into it in order to get it out of you and on the page. So put your perfectionism aside. I know it's scary, but no one will see it, not even your best friend unless you show them. No one will see this thing. It's your crappy first draft. Call it that. Be okay with that. Own it. Tell people that's what you're writing. And then we will talk about what happens after the first draft is completed and you can move on to that even better second draft. So I will see you in future videos about that, not the next one. The next one we're going to talk about something maybe even more fun. We'll see. Funner? More fun? We'll see you soon.